Let's take towns, for instance. We have towns of various sizes. We have towns in all of the areas of the province, and they each have their unique needs and they each have their unique challenges, but they each are individual towns and they've got wonderful residents and they each have economies that are thriving for the most part. So what have I learned? I've learned that Saskatchewan is a great place to live, to work, to have our businesses, raise those kids of ours. And from hearing from all of those leaders, I hear passion, I hear commitment, I hear dedication. We had an election in the fall, municipal election in the fall, and we have some new councillors and mayors coming on. We've got experienced ones, and I just want to be part of all of the work that's going to be going on in our province. Despite some of the things that are coming upon us, we will solve it and we will solve it together.
Welcome to Municipal Affairs. In this episode, we're focusing on one of the most significant gatherings for municipal leaders in Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Urban Municipal Association Convention, happening this month in Saskatoon. Every spring, Saskatchewan urban municipal delegates from across the province come together for this annual general meeting. This year, from April 13th to 16th, the convention will host elections for the SUMA Presidency, which will take place on Tuesday, April 15th. Now, one of the two candidates running for president of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association is Randy Goulden, councillor for the city of Yorkton. Now, we had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Randy about her candidacy, her vision for the role, and what she hopes to bring to Saskatchewan's municipalities if re-elected. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your re-election bid for the Saskatchewan Urban Municipal Association presidency. And I want to start with a very simple question. Why did you put your name in for re-offer to become the re-elected president of SUMA in 2025?
Well, it's been a very rewarding last 3 years as president. And before that, for various reasons, I stepped in as interim president twice. And these past 3 years have been rewarding, but they've also been challenging. And I have found that our elected officials throughout this province step up and they provide voices to me that I can then take forward. And in talking with many of them again this last since January, I'm hearing that they have wanted me to continue in the role. They feel that SUMA has done a really, really good job of talking about where we need to go in the future. Yes, we are celebrating 120 years. But our municipalities need us for the next 120 years. And after talking to members right across this province the past 2.5 years, it's something that I want to continue and take this governance, the new changes that SUMA is going to have, bringing more engagement in. I want to be part of that, and I want to be part of that as president. And that is the reason that I'm stepping up.
Saskatchewan has a very diverse and very unique municipal landscape. You have many resorts, villages. You have villages, towns, cities across the province. In your last 2.5 years, almost 3 years as president, because you came on as interim and then you were, I believe, elected fully as president in 2023. What have you learned about the municipal landscape that brings you to the belief that you would be the best person situated to lead the organization into its 121st year, 122nd year?
Yeah. Interesting. And yes, we have a diverse and varied membership. And to be precise, we have 32 resort villages. We have 16 cities. We have 147 towns, and we have 232 villages. And we have 32 northern municipalities. And they're all, no matter even if they fall into a sector. Let's take towns, for instance. We have towns of various sizes. We have towns in all of the areas of the province, and they each have their unique needs and they each have their unique challenges, but they each are individual towns and they've got wonderful residents and they each have, economies that are thriving for the most part. So what have I learned? I've learned that Saskatchewan is a great place to live, to work, to have our businesses, raise those kids of ours. And from hearing from all of those leaders, I hear passion, I hear commitment, I hear dedication. We had an election in the fall, municipal election in the fall, and we have some new councillors and mayors coming on. We've got experienced ones, and I just want to be part of all of the work that's going to be going on in our province. Despite some of the things that are coming upon us, we will solve it and we will solve it together. And that's why I want to be a part of this. And those are the things that I can bring and continue to bring to SUMA as their president.
While you are right in acknowledging that each of your individual member municipalities have their own unique challenges, as SUMA president, you will have to advocate for the collective organization on very big macro issues. What do you see as the big issues that are coming up, and why do you believe you're the best person positioned to fight for those issues that the collective municipal family is faced with in Saskatchewan?
Our collective family is faced with all these concerns, these challenges, but from that collection comes varied experiences, and that collection brings varied relationships that they have built. And I think that's another one of our strengths here in Saskatchewan. We build relationships that we can go out and advocate together. And now with SUMA and SUMA now at our last AGM, over 80% of our members have chosen to go in the governance way that came to them. We're going to be having caucus models. There's going to be more engagements. We're going to hear more of those voices. And we know what those voices are saying because they've said them to us many times. What are we concerned about? Infrastructure, no matter how big your community is, no matter how small it is, no matter if it's in the north, the south, the east, the west, we all have infrastructure deficits and things we need to do. We're also hearing strongly these voices saying to us, community safety is absolutely an essential part of why people choose to live or move to our communities, and also the whole well-being of our community. So that community safety and well-being is another thing we're hearing. And then, the third piece is around the economy, especially about so many things that we're hearing. So whether you live, in a village and you're part of the agricultural industry, or whether you live in your village and you commute to a larger city or a larger town or even a larger village to work, we all have those same challenges around infrastructure, economy, community safety, and well-being that we have to work together on. And as I traveled around the province, I heard so many different ways that we can work together on this. And those voices are strong. And I think we know that because, Saskatchewan has what, 1.3 million people, but we're small. We're small compared to everybody else. So our elected officials, whether you're elected federally or provincially, we know them. And if we don't know them, we know their grandparents or we know their children. So we can get in and we can have those conversations and we can influence decisions that are made in the other orders of government.
So you talk about three very big macro issues, and I want to dive into a few of them for a moment, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Infrastructure is the name of the game, and I was just actually chatting with a councillor from Weyburn, Saskatchewan, the day we're recording this, and we talked about the infrastructure challenges that are going on in Weyburn. I've had the pleasure of chatting with a few members from across Saskatchewan, and it seems that is the big topic of discussion. What would you do as president if reelected to ensure that this government hears you, hears SUMA's members, hears the voices of urban municipalities to ensure that we're not having this discussion 4 years from now or 2 years from now?
Yeah. Well, and those discussions are basically the same whether we're having them with our provincial government or our federal government. because what we need to see happen is a partnership. Our infrastructure deficit didn't happen this year, last year, or 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We have a system of funding that came to us, believe it or not, in Queen Victoria's time. When we signed those papers that made us this whole country, 1867, 1869, all those things were negotiated, and we're still living in that world. So when you would have paid property tax 120 years ago here in Saskatchewan, I can I can say, I think, in and be very firm on this, your road system has changed. Your sewer, your water, that's changed. And who's responsible for that? Policing, that's changed. So that's us, that's our municipalities. But also the provincial and federal governments have a role to play in that too. And I think that role we've not taken that to, we need a new fiscal framework for the whole country. And that way we can fund infrastructure the way it needs to be funded, but we can also plan to do that. We have our asset management now. We know in our communities, when I drive down the streets here in my community, I know the streets that need to be made better. I know where we need the pipes and the drainage fixed. So that type of funding from our federal and our provincial government, because they share it, and we'll pay our share, but we're not going to pay for it all.
Do you think you have the relationships both federally and provincially to have those tough conversations? Because when I speak to municipal leaders, I often hear they want someone to build those relationships, but they also want someone who has their elbows up and in the corner, if you're talking about the hockey metaphor for a second, fighting for those smaller urban municipalities. Do you feel like you have those relationships where you're able to, and I'm going to sort of say a thing that I often say on the show, call a spade and call the government out when they are not fully funding the municipalities as they should?
Well, I've worked very hard in my 24 years on elected council in my community, worked very hard in building relationships. And the one thing that I've learned is you have to have that personal relationship. You have to be respectful, but you have to be firm, because all of that comes to play when we bring our concerns. We want them to understand that here in Saskatchewan, our urban municipalities, we're bringing over 82% of the population live in our urbans. And we're bringing their voices, but we're bringing their strength and we're bringing their concerns. But we're also bringing their advocacy, what they need in those home communities. So do I believe I can do the elbows up? I think I can. I've heard from some ministers that, perhaps we were a bit too firm on things. That's their words. I don't think we can ever be firm enough. The other thing, Chris, that I think we absolutely need, and SUMA is going down this road. We're working very hard with this. We're working with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to be data driven. Data is king. We can show numbers now. We can show some of the issues that we have. We have the asset management. We can talk about what is missing, how far in deficit we are, and what is required. So, and I think we were heard when we were negotiating with the new Canada Build Fund, formerly the fuel tax. And we heard from federal government that, all funding would have a portion of housing in it. And clearly in Saskatchewan, our urban municipalities told us that's not on. That is not on at all, because there are so many other things that our communities need, and definitely infrastructure is one of them. And it can help with the housing, but we have to fix that first. So you saw there was a change. And now that funding, only municipalities over 30,000 population will have that as a portion of their contracts and agreements.
I want to turn to the second area that you talk about when we talk about macro issues, and that is the community safety aspect.
Yeah.
Traditionally, we saw on the federal level that municipalities were left out of the discussion around RCMP costs and the rising challenges that they're faced with. Municipalities are often not looked at about when it comes to justice, but you guys are on the front lines. You see, municipalities see the work that needs to be done, and you are the ones who are advocating. How will you approach the need for safer communities as president if reelected? And how do you see yourself doing that in the last 2.5 years as the president already?
Well, it's really interesting because what we look at is community safety and well-being, because there's the policing is one portion of it, but there's more. So we've heard from our members loud and clear about that. So the policing, well, there's a few concerns around that. First of all, we want some guarantees from our federal government that the contract policing will be renewed after the contract expires in 2032. It's getting very close now. It may seem like 4 or 5 years down the road, but that's not a lot of time when we have to police the province of Saskatchewan. So we need to have a direction, and we've been told that that's going to continue. But we know now the former prime minister had a white paper come to him about that and where he needs to go. We've had no indication that there's going to be any change, so we're full speed ahead on that. We're very fortunate in our province that we have our CEO that's part of that contract policing committee. So we've got direct input into that. So we are hearing and we're seeing some of the things that come forward. We know there's a new, agreement that's being negotiated with the staffing. We don't see it as being so much of an increase like we saw last time, which was, close to 32%, because now this is the second time. So they've kind of looked after all of the big things that were in the first time. So we have that. Then the whole issue around recruiting and retention of officers in our community comes into play. And, detachments who are underfunded, understaffed. The detachments that see members transferred and then members at the same time, the remaining members have to go to provide enforcement for the G7 or something like that. So those are the discussions that we have to have at those tables. Because I know in my community at one G7, we had 3 transfers out and we had 3 taken to the G7s in Kananaskis. That's not on. That's 6. That's 6 officers we were down. And then vacations came into play too. So those are the concerns that we have to have ongoing discussions with, both with the province, because in our province, we have 8 cities that are directly contracted through Public Safety Canada. And then the rest of our communities are through the provincial policing agreements. So we have 2 different systems in our province. And then we have our municipal policing. Let's not forget about that. Because we have some of our larger cities that are policed municipally, but we also have some of our other communities that have their own municipal police. So, we have these things to take into consideration, but knowing that safety is always a top priority.
Now, I was going to talk about affordability, but I'm very cautious of time right now, and I want to talk about relationships for a second because
Yes.
if you were reelected, SUMA is not the only municipal organization in the province of Saskatchewan. There's also the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities. You also are, as president, an ex officio member of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. You deal a lot with Alberta municipalities, the Association of Manitoba Municipalities.
Yeah.
How do you build stronger relationships with your Western counterparts, your federal counterparts as president? And how do you see yourself in that role as president in fostering a strong working relationship with your rural counterparts, your provincial counterparts, and your federal counterparts as we head into this very unknown tariff-driven
Yeah.
war that we are going through with China and Donald Trump?
Yeah. That's a lot. Is that all one question, Chris?
That's all
Well,
one
first of
question,
all,
Randy.
Let me say that, yes, I am appointed by SUMA to sit on FCM for these past few years as president. But understanding that I was on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for 14 years before that, elected in the province. So I have been there, and I have been the chair of the Prairie Territory Caucus. So that's Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Northwest Territories, Yukon, and Nunavut. So I have a lot of those relationships, and I have worked very hard on them. And that's why, that I was chosen in 2019, 2020 to chair WEST, which was the Western Economic Solutions Task Force, with just that, talking about our economy and working together with the provinces and the federal government. So I have established relationships there. And I'm proud to say that, I am respected on those seats because I've had to be elected to them first. And then with our partners here in Saskatchewan, well, Chris, I have worked with SARM for many years. I traveled with three different presidents as we went to FCM together, and vice presidents. And we even initiated something here a few years ago that the president and CEO of SARM and of SUMA, we meet twice a year informally, sit down, have a coffee, and talk about what things can we work together on. Because when we sit down with provincial government to advocate, the question I get is, so what does SARM say? And if you talk with Bill Huber now, their president, those are the same questions provincial government asks of him. What does SUMA say? And we know that it's better doing things together, because then when we go in, we sit down with the minister once a year in a format where we're there together and we're advocating on many topics together. So we have that. We also have a partnership with the Saskatchewan School Boards Association, and the work that they do in the province, these different provincial organizations. I was fortunate. I sat down with the president of APAS when we're talking about our neighbor to the south and some of the things that are going on in our agriculture industry. So the president of APAS, this lives outside of Yorkton. I've known him for many years. We sat down and had a really good meeting about, the agricultural pressures that we're feeling right now, and the producers. But then again, it's our urban municipalities that have the processors and the manufacturers for this product. And Chris, I'm also a taxpayer in a rural municipality outside of Yorkton. I have land that is still our family owned and will always own in our name. And I'm happy to say that my renter is the reeve of that RM. So we have many of these conversations. So what I said about relationship building, they're just never ending, and you have to cultivate them and you have to go into them honestly and with respect.
I want to turn to SUMA as a whole now. We've got to know a little bit about you and how you will approach it. But as I do, that SUMA is not just a president, it is a team. You have a great organization at the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. I've met a few of your staff members, and they are wonderful people. How do you see yourself continuing to build a great working relationship with the staff members to advocate? Because the advocacy just doesn't come from the president or the members. It also comes from the people who are hired to advocate for SUMA's behalf. So what do you see as your relationship between the staff at SUMA and you as the potential next president, or re-elected president, I should say?
Yeah. Well, I'm the president, the board chair, whatever name you allocate to that. So that is bringing in, our board, but also now we have the caucuses. We have the caucus chairs and vice chairs, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that, to bringing in all those thoughts and those voices and bringing them into a consistent message. So I think the first thing that has to happen with the new board is we have to sit down. And we have to formulate our new strategic plan, because everything runs from our strategic plan. What is our mission? Is that still where we're going? Where is the vision? Where do we want to see SUMA in another 120 years from now? We can look back at the past and we can learn from that. It's a constant learning from the past, but we have to put that into play into the future. So my role is to work with our administration, to work with our board, so we have that strategic plan, so that we have our goals, so that we have all the tasks that have to happen, all of the activities that have to take place. And that does two things. That provides the administration direction on where they need to go, but it also provides for us, the board, a way to monitor. So what we've set out to do, are we doing it? Is it working? Do we need to shift and pivot a little bit? Do we need to go out to our members and ask them? And that's what we're all about. That's what SUMA is all about. We've got over 440 members, and each one of them has to understand that they have a voice in this association. Me as president, I don't set the direction. I just work with administration and the board to make sure that we have all the processes, the procedures in place. And am I proud of our administration, our staff, our team? Absolutely. Absolutely. And, as we have some changeover where people may need to leave for whatever reason, we've been able to bring in really good staff. We've got a good basis, a good foundation. They just need us as the board, not me as the president, us as the board, and us as the caucuses, and us as the membership, to provide that direction so that they can go off and have good working processes and procedures to get it done.
This is a very big year for SUMA because, as you've just mentioned a few times in the interview so far, you have changed the governance model of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association to this caucus model. Why is it important to have you continue on as we enter into this new era of governance for SUMA? Because there might be people saying, well, we're going into a new direction, so let's go with a new president. What would you
Yeah.
say to those people? I'm trying to play devil's advocate with you a little bit, Randy. I apologize, but what do you say to people who say, we're going into a new direction, so let's go with a new president? Why should the Saskatchewan municipal delegates on April 15th vote for Randy Goulden to continue on as president?
Well, I spent 2.5 years in this process, going throughout this province many times, and listening. And if anything, I'm a good listener. And then I get the direction and I go back. We pivoted several times on different things we heard by our members, and I am fortunate enough that I can do those things. I have the skills to do those things through my life. That is what I've done in my work life, my family life, and I also truly believe that we need consistency now. We need to have somebody that is understanding of the system, has worked in the system, has heard from our members about it, because it is a pivotal time here. I believe we've got the right governance in place, but we have to now implement it. We have to implement it, and we have to be consistent with where we're going. And I think I can bring that to continue to be president, and to be a strong president that listens, that can cooperate, that can coordinate things, but also to be respectful in everything I do. In my home, that is the way that I grew up. I grew up with listening to voices that we may not agree with. Because let's face it, Chris, even you and I, we don't agree with everything when we're talking every time. But I have been able to work with people in matters that relate to differences, and to come up with some way to move forward. Because I truly believe this is SUMA's time to continue to move forward, to build those relationships, to be strong, to make sure that we are doing the best we can for our members, because that's what we're about. And we're about advocacy for our members, and we're about putting education, professional development tools together, and we're about also providing services to save our members money. And I think what we've done with Kinetic GPO these past 2 or 3 years to provide those services for procurement, I think that has also played a big part. And I understand all those roles. And I truly believe in my heart that I can continue to doing the job that needs to be done to make sure that SUMA can provide everything that our members are looking for.
Now, I have one last question for you, and it's back about you because the role of SUMA president is not a on the table, off the corner of your desk job. You're in Regina. Now, I've traveled from Yorkton to Regina a few times, and I'm assuming a lot less than
Yeah,
you have traveled from Yorkton to Regina.
yeah,
You're meeting with ministers. As you said, you're on the board of FCM, so you're going off to Ottawa and meeting with ministers,
yeah,
government officials in Ottawa. That means that you are going to be balancing SUMA's presidency, if reelected again, Yorkton Council job, and your job as well, because I know
yeah,
you work as well.
yeah.
Do you have the support system with the Yorkton Council to say, yes, go do this? We want you in those conversations because that means it's less time advocating for just Yorkton, but you're advocating for all of Saskatchewan. So, can you balance these three aspects of your personal life? And I know it's a personal question, but there might be people
Yeah.
saying, can Randy do it?
Well, I've done it for 3 years. And before that, I've done it a few times too. And I just have to say, my Mayor Aaron Keenley, came out with a statement about me running, and he signed my papers, and he's very proud of that. I'm also a counselor, so my role is not as intensive as my Mayor Aaron Keenley's is. So he was very happy to provide that support for me. So I have that. I also have the support of my family, which is really important. They have been integral right through the time I've spent being elected. And I also have my employer. And before I ran for council in November, I had their total support in running for council again in any role I might undertake. And my role as in the workplace is flexible. I work from home evenings. I work from home early in the mornings. I can work away any place that I need to on the weekends. So I've managed that very successfully. Right now, I'm going into the Yorkton Film Festival. So the oldest film festival in North America, and we would be the world if it hadn't been for that small little place in South France named Cannes, who is 2 weeks older than us. But I can say we are right on schedule for everything we need to do for that. So do I have balance? I've learned that over the years as a mother of 4 children, as I've always been in the work environment, always. And I've managed that balance with the supports that I have in place. And not only that, Chris, I have energy. I love going out and doing these things, and I have the enthusiasm, as you can see, that I am so excited that if the membership of SUMA right across this province do vote me back in as president, I'm ready and I'm willing, and I've got everything ready so I can get back at the work that's required.
Randy, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down and talking about your run for re-election for SUMA president. For those who are listening or watching this, reminder that the links to Randy's platform, which are on the SUMA website, will be listed in the show notes below. So if you want to check out her platform, where her email address, so you can reach out to her, are, please do so. Randy, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights. Now, we will be live on location for the 4-day convention in Saskatoon at the SUMA Convention, and we are looking forward to gathering and meeting with municipal leaders from across the province and hopefully sitting down with them and talking about their wants and needs as we head into the rest of 2025. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms, or if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe today. To learn more about the communities and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, please visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.